Hi everyone, welcome back. This is the first part of this video that this has been quite the bunny video. I screwed up the first round that I did, so I did part one, and this is what I finished in part one. We're going to finish up in part two, or I'm going to make sure we do one way or the other. Okay, so we're going to continue on, and I may not talk that much. I may do a bit more painting and less talking, so I can, if I need something to, if I think that it'd be good to explain something that I haven't explained already, well then I'll stop and I'll explain it. But so I can say this: I'm on dry paper with a fairly wet brush, and I'm going to paint on this flower here. We did a lot of washes. We did wet on dry. We did wet on wet, and blended colors and all kinds of things in the first one. So be good to watch the first one. And I'll take some sienna and some burnt sienna and well, what is that color? Gamboge, I think. And we're just gonna make these back petals here, which are a bit darker. And we're trying to remember to leave white spaces. Yes, you can always go back in, and I do all the time, with a white of some sort. I use acrylic whites. I also use Chinese white. I have different whites that I do. But isn't that pretty? And as I was talking about in the first one, I'm using this really quite large brush. This is a size 16, fat belly, but the most beautiful tip to work with. It's just wonderful. I'm literally finishing up all of this painting with this, even the places that are tight and hard to get into. We're going to take water on the brush. We're going to wet the paper here for these two leaves. I'm going to use all the combinations of colors that I've got on my palette right now, adding in a little yellow here and there. This is how I do many blends, and I don't know why, but people like it a lot. So, all right, so we're going to use this beautiful tip. Get a little more water on my brush. I want it to move around. And there we go. Right off the side as if it wasn't there, and that's on purpose. I was also explaining that I do not, and have chosen not anymore, to use tape. I just can't see the reason to have to use the tape anymore when I can just draw the lines as I have here for my guide for whatever the mat is that's going to go on top of this. What do I need the tape for? Sometimes it takes the paper off the paper. And I mean, why have that extra expense when I don't need that extra expense? I just draw it. Sometimes I don't have anything at all. Sometimes I just do the painting right to the edges. It's all what you want. There's no set rule on that whatsoever. Now those came out pretty. All right, we're going to keep going along here. Down here, I'm going to just put in some greenery quickly. I'm going to just, because I want to get that down inside these spaces to look like, there's greenery behind it. Let's see here. I wanted to come over and can define things by taking a little darker color, putting it in places. Now, again, I'm using this fine tip. I put some water on my brush, and I'm moving around what was already dry, onto what was already dry. Kind of moving it around, softening it a little bit here and there. Let's see here. I'll make sure we get through this, and if not, I'll finish the rest of it offline. I'm actually going to leave the back of this one white. I normally, like a lot of times, I just use a lot of background wash, but I'm not going to on this one. I'm kind of liking the white, and I'm going to take sap green, which I haven't dipped into yet in this yet, and that's what I'm going to with a dry paper on the background and a wet brush and wet paints. Some water on my brush, very little, and this is going to be sap green. These darker ones were with perline green and some mixtures from my palette. It's funny how things work out, huh? Okay, and I hope, folks, that you are... I'm going to just stick one in there like that. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to do the same thing, point down. I'm noticing I don't have any of those, and I would like to put some in. So if you just zoom in when you're watching, you'll see how I did that. Point down, press down a bit, come up, point up. And I'm just putting in some extra leaves where I didn't have any drawn in, because I decided to, and I do that a lot as well. So we got those. All right, I'm trying to see what that, all right, we got a flower under his chin there. Oh boy, what color flower do we want under there? I think we need to do a purple. So I'm going to come here with my dry brush. And this was a different kind of flower, so we're just going to draw it in here. I can say, at this point, I can't even see where my lines are. And just sort of, it was like a, I don't know what you call it, leaving all kinds of white spaces there. Do you see that? And then outlining this one that is this little tiny one that I put in the center that I wanted to make as the center of that other flower, which is kind of unique. All right, and then I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do next here. Let's see, we're gonna go to some rose. I want to add that in a little bit more up here in this one where I had a little rose color there. All right, and then we're going to take this same brush and our greens that are mixed with so many colors now, add a little orange, a little gamboge into the green, take a little bit off on the paper towel, and we're going to come here holding my finger on my baby finger down on the paper, because I don't want this to, or I want this to be painted where I want it to be painted. I want to guide this one. Bring a little bit down into the stem. It does help if you don't have real steady hands, which I don't. So a lot of times, especially at the end of the day, I've had coffee and so forth, so not so steady anymore. So I'm going to take a blue because I would like to have a pretty blue flower here. Blue flowers within paintings are very pretty. And we're going to go around again with the edge of this, kind of carefully here, leaving white spots, going back around to give it some, to give the white areas, but to darken the areas close to the insides there. Just kind of dotting it in is what I'm doing. Pretty, so pretty. All right, let's see here. And I'm going to take a lavender again. Just add the white to my purple, but I'm going to add a little mauve in there. All right, and we're going to come, actually, I want it to spread a little, so I'm going to come over here, and we're going to, it's on dry paper, but I wet the brush. So by wetting the brush, I've wet the paints a little more. Want this to be kind of a lavender, and then this was a little darker in the background on the back side, but still trying to leave a white space here and there, as you can see. I'm going to take this dark color and outline the rest of the flower, though. Something else I didn't do over in these areas, I wanted to have the lines in the flowers a little bit. I like lines in flowers, sort of indicating they usually do have lines in them. Very faint, but you can, barely make them out, but they're there. And then go back into some darker purple, and down here, a little more wet, a little wetter. Down at the bottom, just make that be a bit darker. And make those lines with your tip of this beautiful, beautiful brush. And then the green. Nice. And a little bit of purple in with my green, which will darken it up. We're going to do this leaf, kind of coming out in between all these. And going behind that flower petal. And the tip of it's going to come out right over here. You just kind of hiding behind that leaf. Oh, hiding behind that petal. Little yellow. Well, I guess I gotta wet the brush a little. Paint's getting a little dry. And yellow that up a little bit there. And there. And then we have another set, of these beautiful, of this beautiful burnt sienna with some yellow ochre. And these fine little, whatever we called them, which I don't know. But again, praising this brush. I'm sorry that you can't see this. I don't know how else to do this because my hand's in the way. But I'm here, I can tip it up. I'm literally, look at how, whoops, I'm out of the camera, I'm sorry. Look at how, there we go. I got a little carried away there. Look at how beautiful. You can take a lot more paint on there, make them darker, or just have some nice fine light lines as well. These make pretty fillers, for your flowers and your baskets and so forth. I just have no idea what they're called. I don't know, sticks, I guess. If you know, just put it in the comments. And then I'm going to come up here, in between here, and I'm going to make a small one, a very thin one. And to make the thin one, I press ever so lightly. I can't stress that enough. I'm barely touching this page, barely, to make these very thin lines. Barely touching. Now we're going to put a dark red flower right under here. Right under his chin, next to this beautiful purple flower. I don't don't know what kind of flower this is. I just drew things. I really didn't think too much about what they were or look it up. You can if you want to. And this one was kind of leaving the white places. And then a little lighter as it came. So I take a lot of the water off my brush, take the paint off, just kind of pull this into the center area. I'm going to take some gamboge. I'm going to distribute it into the center. And I'm going to take some sepia on the tip. Dot these on here. I don't want to lift it up too much. I got water there. And see how well that goes on. Just beautiful. And I'm just going to take the very tip and I'm going to pull out some lines. Very gently. Very, very gently pushing on the paper. Right? Now we've got one more flower here. And I think I'm going to use a blue. I think this is one of my, I think it was Peruvian blue, I think. Dry paper. Brush is wet, paints, brush is semi-wet, paints are semi-wet. And I'm going to put this one in, leave, if I can remember, leave some white spaces, outlining it, moving that paint around a little bit. And folks, this doesn't happen overnight. You don't start painting and you can control all this well at first. It was one of the reasons that I was so daunted to try to do watercolor. But when you finally decide, like I did, which I explained in my intro and in one of my videos there, a message on that I finally got tired of telling myself I couldn't do it and did it. So it takes a while to do all this. I'm going to dip into my metallic here, blue, and see what that does. Sort of put it around in places, and with the right light it will sparkle. And then we got these little things, these little coming there, hidden underneath here, which I'm seeing right now. Dip into one of the greens, a little bit of the sepia with it, and I had a little leaf right here that I had drawn in, and it kind of escaped my view there for a little while, but I just saw it. So, and I want that a bit darker in there, so I'm going to take some of that blue that I just did that flower with, move it around a little, take some out a little, bring it to a nice tip. The same thing over here. See how that tip, I just come down and I lift up off, making a beautiful tip, right? Here we've got some leaves that need a few defining. And I don't want this one by far to go very long, so I'm going to take a little sepia here. I'm going to add this up in his top of his ears. It should be a little darker there, right on this edge. The sepia is this brownish is brownish now because it's been mixed with so many colors. Again, that's what I use. That's what I do. I don't specifically mix anything. I just sort of let them happen and then use them. So far it's working really well. And then I'm going to go into the sepia again to the tip of my brush. So I want to define his eyes, her eyes, or his eyes, a little more. And I want to pull out these little eyelashes a little more, all with the tiny tip of this beautiful brush. Amazing. And then we're going to do the same thing. I need to make his little whiskers more defined and move them, you know, not just straight lines. Wisp them, or whatever the word would be. You know, flick like that, to get them looking like they're moving, if I can talk. Okay, I don't want to push that too far. All right, and we only have, what I can see, one egg left down here, so we're going to wet it. These are dry, so it's not going to blend into those. And I'm going to choose, well, what color do we want this one? How about a, all right, I'll just use a blue, dark blue. I think this is, what do you call it? I got a lot of pigment on that brush, and look at it moving. I had a little too much water, though. I have to just soak up a little water. I often forget these brushes and how much water they will hold. Tons of water. And I'm going to move this around a little into the darker area there, and around down at the bottom here. Leave that nice white spot. Bam! I like that one. Take a little yellow. I always like yellow. That turns into a pretty green with the blues. Add that there. And that one is done. I don't have to do anything else to that. And as you can see here, and I think we need a little, oh no, I know, hold on. I needed this purple and this flower here to be a little more defined around this white flower, because I want this white flower to stand out, and the only way it's going to stand out is if I make sure what's around it is dark. Come in here and darken this part of these greens, and you will see as you're watching the video how much more now this white flower is poking out. It was before, but not to the depth that it is now. It's all about the darks against the lights. It just makes such a difference. And look how I can get into this tiny little spot without bothering that flower. And right in here, right in between the flower and the leaf. We'll move around the paint a little to get the lines out, or you don't have to if you like the lines. It's all up to you. It's your painting. See how that flower in the center is now just popping out at you. The more dark you put in, the more it's going to pop out. Oh, just poked it a little there, but that's okay. My eyes are getting cross-eyed. It's the end of a day, and I have some eye issues, so today was one of them. Sometimes I wonder how I can do these little fine paintings and so forth, but I don't know. I give all that credit to God. And the gift of painting. We want that to be a little darker, right? Where is it? Right here. Yeah. And right here. There. And now that little white flower just rather jumped right off that page. And that is all I'm going to do. And another tip, I used acrylics with this paint. I mixed them, so I'm going to make sure I really wash that brush really well to make sure that I have all of that out of the brush. If you don't, you're going to find it's going to harden part of the brush. So even after I've done it with you, I'm going to end up going over to the sink and washing them again. And then massage your brushes right to the tip again. It will keep these brushes very much nicer for a much longer time. So I do that at the end. And that is that for this last, or this, this particular painting. This is this part 2 of this one that I started. Again, look for part 1 with 1 or 2 of the same names, same words in the title. There'll be a few more Easter ones up to Easter, and then that'll be it. But I just figured it would give you guys ideas of these can make great little cards. And actually, the next 2, I just reminded myself of something. The next 2 that I do, or the next few that I do, I'm going to make them as cards. This same paper I'll fold over and make as a card. And then you can see how you can make really cute little cards. This would have made a really cute one. I wished I had thought about it, but that's okay. There's plenty more where that comes from, especially your imagination. So I could do tons more with this, but this is where I'm leaving it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some helpful tips and some encouragement. That's my whole purpose of doing these videos, is encourage you to paint. Catch the bug and just go for it. Don't be afraid, and just go for it. If you get a chance, listen to my intro or listen to the video that's a message to everyone, an encouraging message. So have a wonderful day, folks, and bye for now.